the first week of June 2025. I'm Dave. I'm here with Andrew, and you're listening to the first episode of BV Weekly. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, Dave, what's going on?
Just doing this podcast thing, I guess.
Yeah, this is our first episode of our new weekly podcast. Why don't you tell everybody what we're going to be doing here every week?
Sure. If you've tuned in, then you already know Brooklyn Vegan is a blog about food options in Brooklyn. No, just kidding. Long-running music blog where people still constantly ask. It's been 21 years, but people are still like, wait, that's not about food? So yeah, this is the new podcast version of Brooklyn Vegan, where we're going to be talking about music news every week, new albums, new songs, just whatever we're thinking and liking, just bringing Brooklyn Vegan to your ears. Andrew and I will be here every week, and we're launching today, which is the same day new albums by Turnstile and Pulp come out, so we'll get to those. But meanwhile, like, how's your week been going?
Well, it's the first hot day of the year.
Yeah, it's so hot here. And actually, that's a good point because both of us are going to see Turnstile tonight. So if you're listening to this on the day it came out, it's now Friday, but we're recording it on Thursday. And just a few hours, we're going to go see Turnstile, who are playing huge outdoor show in New York. It's like 10,000 capacity under a bridge. And it's very hot out.
Yeah, I'm trying to drink my cold brew fast because my ice cubes keep melting before I can finish it. But yeah, it's crazy where they're playing. I've never been. Have you been under the K Bridge?
Nope, be my first time.
Me too. Me too. I know that it's like more usually used for dance music. Although they're also doing CBGB Festival this year, later this year at that location. So I guess now it's also punk between Turnstile and CBGB Fest. But it's kind of interesting because the last big New York show Turnstile played was Brooklyn Mirage, and which is also mainly a dance club. And I think for people like us at Brooklyn Vegan, we always like to kind of speculate on what will be the next New York City venue for a rising band. And it's interesting with Turnstile because I feel like I'm consistently wrong because they just keep picking venues that like punk bands and rock bands don't usually pick.
Right. And they also play with bands who are not rock bands. Case in point tonight, Tizo Touchdown is the rapper who's playing right before Turnstile go on.
Yeah, I last saw Tizo open for Tyler, the Creator.
Oh, whoa. There you go.
And I think at Madison Square Garden. So now saw him. He had a 15-minute set. He was first of 4, and he clearly understood the assignment and was like, I need to win over this crowd who's not here to see me. And it was great. And now I'm going to see him play under a bridge.
And like Tyler, the Creator, Turnstile's new album features collaboration with jazz artist Bad Bad Not Good.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah, and I mean, and it's not, obviously this isn't, so the whole bill tonight is 2 hardcore bands to start it off, End It and Big Boy, and then Boy Harsher, who are like a gothy post-punky band, rapper, even calling Tizo Touchdown a rapper is like, he's just an eccentric artist with roots in hip-hop, and then Turnstile, and yeah, I mean, Turnstile famously got the crowd going crazy at Rolling Loud, the biggest rap festival in, I guess, the world, like the biggest, at least multi-location one. So it's like there's certainly, I think there's already precedent for can Turnstile crowd and a hip hop crowd sort of coalesce.
And in case people are wondering if Turnstile is still a hardcore band, like you said, the first 2 bands opening are not only hardcore bands, but hardcore bands whose average shows definitely have pretty violent pits. So if anyone is confused about what genre Turnstile is and they get there early enough, they may accidentally find out very suddenly.
So we're jumping right into my least favorite topic about Turnstile.
Yeah. I think we're both in agreement that Turnstile is still a hardcore band and will always be a hardcore band, no matter how alternative rock they are in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the talk about this is so hard to avoid. It's all over social media. it's in some of the reviews of the new record.
And it's been going on for years.
Right. And it's, it would happen with the last album too. And we're going to talk about it, but I find it to be honestly like such an uninteresting topic.
Well, when I was thinking, how could we make an interesting podcast? I was like, let's start off with the most uninteresting topic possible.
It's interesting to everybody else. Everybody clearly wants to talk about this. It's boring to me because I feel like the only people who care about whether or not Turnstile is a hardcore band are people who like feel some type of purism for hardcore, and I think musical purism is boring, so I therefore think this question is boring. But like, to me, it's like, first of all, yes. Second of all, it doesn't matter because there's so many angles to come at this. But one for me is like, this came up in an interview I did with Ian Shelton from Military Gun, who also get questioned, are they still a hardcore band? And when we talk about hardcore as in like, oh, traditional hardcore, like our minds usually go to some type of like either rooted in Minor Threat or rooted in Madball or like something like that. And it's like, well, really, I mean, traditional hardcore is also like Husker Du and the Minutemen and Bad Brains, one of Turnstile's biggest influences, who have like half reggae songs. And like hardcore, I think, has always, from its pretty much earliest days, favored musical adventureness. And then later on got more closed-minded and was like, no, you can only be like, so to me, I'm like, for Turnstile to explore whatever crazy ideas they have, whether they sound like Bad Brains or whether they sound like the Police, is like, that is hardcore. What is more hardcore than that? It would be less hardcore to follow these strict rules defined by other bands. Like, isn't hardcore supposed to be about like musical freedom and nonconformity? Like, that's the original idea.
They continue to prove they're hardcore in other ways. Look at that big free show they did in Baltimore. There was no barrier. They took over a public park. There was something like 10,000 people there, and it was nonstop stage diving with, like, some people will say it is not hardcore to have a barrier, meaning you shouldn't have a space between the crowd and the stage, which usually bigger shows have. We'll see if Turnstile have a barrier tonight. But yeah, they're keeping it real even at 10,000 capacity shows when they can, which is not easy because barriers are a safety thing. And you can imagine what it's like getting the city of Baltimore to agree to have a crazy show where people are jumping off the stage constantly with no security between the stage and the crowd. But
totally. And it was exactly the kind of show that like Fugazi would have done.
And even cheaper than a Fugazi show. Although the New York City show,
not
different
cheap.
story.
Not cheap.
$100 tickets, and word on the street is almost sold out at like 9 to 10,000 capacity. That yeah. And did we talk about the fact that it's under a bridge?
Well, it's called Under the K Bridge because it's literally under the K Bridge. So yeah, I mean, which again is like, it feels so them, I think, to just be like, it's their album release show. It's their first New York show since that Brooklyn Mirage show, which was, I think, 2023. And so of course they're like, yeah, we're going to play like under a bridge rather than, just like whatever the next size club on the typical trajectory of moving up in the New York City club show thing is.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me when that show was announced that it was literally on the night the album was coming out.
Yeah, I'm really curious too because so prior to the show, they released 4 singles and then they played 2 more songs on Fallon earlier this week. So 6 songs have been introduced to the world. They've only been playing 3 of them at their other recent shows, including that Baltimore one you mentioned. I remember when they played Elsewhere as Glow On was about to come out, and 7 songs from Glow On were out. They played all 7. I think that was it. So I don't think they played any songs that weren't released yet. And I'm like, okay, like the album comes out on Friday. Like, this is the release show. Like, are they going to make a bunch of live debuts tonight? Or are we going to have to wait until the not yet announced presumable proper tour that's going to happen to hear like, the rest of this record?
Maybe they'll play it in full. And yeah, just to be clear on the timing here, the record comes out about an hour after they leave the stage tonight.
Yeah, and vinyl has shipped to some people, I believe. And there's an accompanying visual album, a music video for every song as a feature film. And that premieres at Tribeca Festival also tonight. So it's like if you go to that first, you could hear the whole album and then like book it over to Under the K Bridge and see them play.
Now you got me excited. Maybe we'll get a full album playthrough. There's not many bands that I would be excited to hear the new album in full, but Turnstile probably one of them that can pull that off.
I would be. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just excited to see them in general because, I mean, as much as I love their records, like a Turnstile live show is just one of the best experiences that you can have as a music fan in the present day, in my opinion. And I saw them a lot on the Glow On tour. And even if there wasn't a new record, I would just be like, I'm overdue. Like, I have to see a Turnstile show. Even if they do just play 3 songs and the rest of the set is like mostly Glow On, a few choice older cuts, like which they've been doing at their recent shows, I'd be like, great, awesome. It's been too long since I've, seen them play Holiday or whatever it is. But yeah, new record, great new record. Let's talk about it. I'm excited. I don't know how objective I can be. If it's not clear, like I really love this band. This is my favorite active band, or like favorite current band, I guess, like favorite band who's putting out music that continues to make them my favorite band. So I'm just excited that they have a new record. And what I think about Never Enough is I think that it's probably not going to have the same cultural impact as Glow On, which I think Glow On, and we should talk about this, but Glow On really broke not just Turnstile but the hardcore scene, and it like kind of put all eyes on hardcore for a long time. And I think to some extent that's still happening. And a little bit, I think the sort of like the real like rage around it has died down a little bit, but I mean there's definitely like a continued moment of, okay, like find us the next Turnstile, like find, like, like, and I mean even something with like Scal signing to Dead Oceans and Military Gun signing to Loma Vista, these labels that aren't known for, I mean, Loma Vista has some punk, but like, definitely not known for hardcore. Late night TV in general has looked at some of this stuff. There's always like every music festival we see announced, not every, but a lot of them have like that line of like 5 token hardcore bands, like on every, like all at the bottom of the lineup. So it's like there's this real interest to like put hardcore in places where it isn't usually. And yeah, I mean, so I think that Never Enough isn't going to have that same cultural impact, but I think I might like it more. I think that there's, and I liked Glow On a lot. Glow On was Brooklyn Vegan's number 1 album of 2021. It was definitely my personal number 1 album of 2021. I mean, I can't say enough about Glow On, how good it is. I do think if I had to say something a little negative about it, I think it streamlined their sound a little bit too much. The predecessor, Time and Space, I think is probably still my favorite Turnstile record. I feel like that one's a little more adventurous. They make a little more kind of like take creative risks, do things a little bit weirder on that record. And I love that Glow On does have like all these great like sing along moments. And I think they needed a record like Glow On, and I think it's fantastic. And I think it does so much good for them and the world that they're part of. But I feel like Never Enough, which was self-produced by vocalist Brendan Yates, I think a lot of it definitely is cut from a similar cloth as Glow On. I mean, it opens with the title track, Never Enough, which is so similar to Glow On opener and lead single Mystery that I feel like it has to be intentionally on the nose. And the cover art is is blue sky with a rainbow, whereas the Glow On cover art was pink sky with clouds. Like, they look very similar. They look sort of like two sides of a coin. Though it is produced by Brendan, whereas the last one was produced by Mike Elizondo, who's done records with like 50 Cent and Eminem and Fiona Apple. They were both mixed by the same person, and I think they sound similar. Like, the overall sonic aesthetic is similar. So there's a lot that makes this very similar to Glow On, but I do think that they like take some more risks on this one. Like, there's my favorite moment is the song Dreaming, where it has like Latin horns over a reggaeton beat with those big chunky Turnstile like hardcore guitars, and it's just like, after putting out a lead single that made you wonder, are they just gonna like make the same record again? Then you put the record on, and pretty quickly you're like, they're just throwing you. Like, there's so many things on this record that are just like, they did that. Like, they have a song where it's like this like ambient new age jazz flute played by Shabaka Hutchings, who is sort of like the current, like, I mean, I guess along with Andre 3000, sort of the current leader of new age jazz flute music. And yeah, I mean, there's a song that, again, I think a lot of people have compared to The Police. Like, you know, it's just, there's so many strange decisions they make on this record, and I think more of them than Glow On had. And I am really, there's the song Look Out For Me, which was a recent single, which is nearly 7 minutes long, starts out with one of the greatest Turnstile riffs ever written, and then it ends up like the second half of the song is just like electronic music, which, you know, totally makes sense that they keep playing these venues known for dance music. So yeah, it just feels like they take more risks, in my opinion. They let themselves in, they indulge themselves on all their crazy ideas, which they've always done. But I think it's really exciting to see a record that, if you liked the poppiness and catchiness of Glow On, there's a lot in common. Like, it's not like they've totally turned away from that or something. But if you're, you know, like kind of hoping that they don't just write that record again, like, surprise me, please. Like, they surprise you so many times. So that's where I'm at on Never Enough. Where are you at, Dave?
I just heard it for the first time right before we started recording this, and so far so good. And I am not the fanboy that you are. I am just happy being a Turnstile fan. I'm excited for the show tonight, but like, to, you know, a few days from now, I won't be continuing to think about Turnstile all day, which is what makes us different, I think.
Yeah,
But yes,
I mean, what else do you think about? I don't.
So I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm not a full on hater. You know, we joke I'm the Turnstile hater in this relationship, but
Yeah. But you are a fan.
I am a fan.
You're not really a hater. You're just,
no, but it's fun to hate on Turnstile. So yeah, the bigger they get, but also it's, you know, how can you hate on, to bring it back? Obviously, one of the ways to hate on Turnstile is to say they're no longer hardcore, to call them 311, to point out how mainstream alternative rock they are. It'd be really hard to say they suck, though.
yeah, and like, also, as they get bigger and expand their sound, like, they keep it real. This band has so much hardcore cred, and they do nothing to distance themselves from that. Like, to your point about like Big Boy and End It opening tonight's show, like, they're using I think probably the biggest show they've ever played, at least certainly in New York, to put on for two much smaller hardcore bands. There is,
including one from their hometown.
right, yeah, like, and they put on for hardcore and they put on for Baltimore. I mean, the tour that hit Brooklyn Mirage was with Snail Mail and JPEG Mafia, neither of whom are hardcore, but both of whom are from Baltimore. So like, that's also keeping it real. They're saying this is how musically diverse the Baltimore scene is. Like, they care about regionality, like, in a time when the internet threatens to erase that from music scenes. And everybody that I've ever interviewed who are from Baltimore about the Baltimore music scene, that is how they talk about it. Like, I've talked to Piano's Become the Teeth about this, and like the same thing. Like, they are proud to be from a place where there's so much musical diversity. To just look at Turnstile as part of the hardcore scene is like, you're missing the fact that they're also a part of the Baltimore scene. That electronic part that I was talking about in Look Out For Me, like, that's inspired by Baltimore club music, and a lot of their percussion is inspired by go-go music, which is from the Baltimore DC area. Like, they are very much from Baltimore as much as they are from hardcore. So to me, like, the question isn't, are Turnstile still hardcore? The question is, are Turnstile still authentic to the band that they were from day one? And I think the answer is like a resounding yes.
Even pulling from go-go music, it's not just a nod to classic DC culture, but it was also part of Bad Brains' story, who, on top of being one of Turnstile's biggest hardcore influences, like you said, were a band who didn't just play fast punk music.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And like, one of the main points that I make in my review about this record is, I think the thing that stands out to me the most is that everything they do sounds like them. The last track, Magic Man, which is just Brendan singing over like ambient synths. When those synths first come in, even before he starts singing, I'm like, this sounds like Turnstile. Like, if I would have heard that synth line on a different artist song, I'd be like, oh, it kind of sounds like Turnstile. They've accomplished so much to get to the point where a hardcore band is doing an ambient synth pop song and it immediately sounds like them. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and sounds like them in this case is a complete album, also produced by Brendan himself.
Yeah. And like it makes me like I want to hear Brendan produce another band's record. Like I like him as a producer. Also they the album was co-engineered and features additional production from Will Yip, who produced Time and Space. So I do have to wonder if they like having Will in their corner, as they do kind of push the envelope a bit, and Will is known for that. Like if you are somehow unfamiliar with Will Yip, just look up his credits. They include Title Fight, Turnover, Mannequin Pussy, Citizen, Balance and Composure. The list is literally endless. And so many bands, I mean, Title Fight being probably the example of this, that want to make a record that really sort of like challenges the boundaries of what people expect from them. A lot of bands that come from punk in the last 15 years have made that record with Will. And Will is known for always encouraging bands like, do that thing. Like with when, like Turnover has been on the mind this year because their album Peripheral Vision turns 10. They're playing it in full actually very soon in New York. I think they might be on tour as we speak, and they did a reissue. Like we had them on our other podcast to talk about the album for its 10th anniversary. And that was like this dream pop record for a band who started out sounding like double like D beating pop punk. And they had Will there being like, you may hear my cat. They had Will like,
Cats are welcome on this
yeah,
show.
Will really encourage them. Like, yeah, like don't worry about what people expect you to sound like. Make the record you want to make, and it became their breakthrough. So I think that's cool that Will Yip is involved on this one.
Will was involved in this year's Scowl record too, right? Which
Yeah,
a band whose some of their fame, I'm not taking anything away from Scowl, but they came up right at the right moment, which that moment was the Turnstile moment. So people, Scowl's popularity somewhat, Turnstile gets a little credit for that. And here they are turning towards a more alternative rock sound too. And there's Will once again.
yeah. No, I mean, Scal put out their debut album "How Flowers Grow" the same year as Glow On, so that was just nice timing, right? If you had a hardcore album in 2021, that was like the Nevermind moment, right? Where you were like, give us everything else like this. And then like Turnstile, they had that one song on the album, Seeds to Sow, which was like Kat sang clean vocals. Just like Turnstile's Nonstop Feeling had that one catchy clean vocal song, Blue by You. And I remember like thinking when I heard Seeds to Sow, I was like, are they going to pull a Turnstile? Obviously they did in their own. I mean, they also just what they did is they pulled a Scal. Like I'm not, like you said, I don't want to take anything away, but like Turnstile kind of set a precedent for like, if you have this really aggressive hardcore record with this one really catchy song, could you take that catchy song further on your next record? And Scal did that, and yeah, made the album with Will Yip. They're on Dead Oceans, like I think. What did we say that? Yeah, like like they're label mates with Phoebe Bridgers and Mitski and Japanese Breakfast, branching out from hardcore music stylistically, and also taking the scene that they come from to new audiences.
And all those Dead Oceans bands you mentioned, I would not be surprised at all to find on a show with Turnstile, who, yeah, continue this trend.
Yeah,
Eh,
I mean, I also won't be surprised to find them all on major labels for their next album, especially Phoebe Bridgers. But
true. Well, Mitski already is Mitski still on Dead
I think
Oceans?
she's still in Dead Oceans.
Oh yeah. Okay. Phoebe Bridgers did leave though.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I mean, Phoebe Bridgers is a Hayley Williams collaborator. Hayley sings on this new Turnstile record. What, like, I could see like Paramore had that cruise they were doing for a bit. Like if Paramore brought that back or did a festival, I could see like Paramore, Phoebe Bridgers, Turnstile as like this kind of like Paramore curated massive event. I would like that a lot. That would be really cool.
Definitely. You know who else they should book on that cruise?
Pulp.
Yes. Pulp album out today. Like, it's like Pulp Turnstile. It's the new Blur Oasis.
Oh man, I thought you were gonna say what is it, like the Barbenheimer,
Yeah, oh, right.
when
Sorry.
Barbie.
Yeah, no, you switched to movies. It took my brain a second to, I'm like, wait, was that, which Britpop rivalry was that? Yes. Barbenheimer. Now, I'm on the same page now. Yes, it's true. Oh, unfortunately, it's not true, though. Unfortunately for Pulp, it's not true. But we can pretend it's true. It's true. in
It's
Brooklyn
true
Vegan
for us.
universe. It's true
Yeah.
for us. Yes.
And especially with I have my album reviews column, notable releases. Bill has his Bill's Indie Basement, and for both columns this week is led by like one of the most anticipated albums of the whole year. Like, I mean, the anticipation for Turnstile took up a lot of my review, like just talking about how anticipated it was. But it's also 4 years in the making. This is Pulp's first album in 24 years.
No, yeah. I mean, Bill might like Pulp more than you like Turnstile,
I don't know.
but not as much not as much as he likes Stereolab.
No, he's had more time to like Pulp at least.
But he's only had 1 week to listen to Stereolab, and now already here's a new Pulp album too.
I know he must be overwhelmed.
Yeah. If you're not totally clear on what we're saying, Stereolab released their first album in like forever, like a week or two ago. So it's been a big month for Indie Basement on Brooklyn Vegan.
Yeah, if you're a reader of that column, I think you know the regard in which Bill holds anything Jarvis Cocker, Broadcast, and Stereolab. So yeah, it's a big time with these Pulp and Stereolab double features. I mean, I don't know if Pulp and Stereolab are otherwise double features for most people. Stereolab and Broadcast would be.
But
I digress.
if you need any more proof that Turnstile's breaking through, I mean, even Bill is seems pretty excited about this Turnstile record.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like it's I, I said this in the review too. I guess we're back at Turnstile, but we'll go to Pulp. Um, I think the reason they got so much crossover success, it's not really because they wrote those really catchy poppy songs. That's like a big part of it, but I think it's really because of all that they incorporate. Because like I have friends who primarily go to raves and love dance music, who really like Turnstile and really like hone in on their percussion and stuff. And like I think there's a lot of elements to this record that probably speak to Bill's sensibilities as someone who I mean I can't quickly sum up what Bill likes in music, but like you know what I'm saying, I think.
They sound like the Police on one song.
They do, yeah. But yeah, never enough Turnstile and more Pulp. Um I really like the combination that those are the album titles.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I think the Pulp record is great. As Bill says in his review, when they did their big hit record in 95 different class, the one with Common People, after that, there was like certainly an effort from Pulp to sort of branch away from the style of that record and not repeat themselves, which, I think makes total sense. But now that they've been gone for like a quarter century, it's like there's a little more confidence there for Pulp to be like, we can, give the people what they want, which is more different class. And actually, two of the songs on the record were apparently written in the 90s, but were like abandoned for sounding too much like different class. One of those is Grown Ups, which literally has Jarvis Cocker whispering, "Are you sure?" in like a very similar way to the way he does on Common People. And the other, which is, I don't know if this is a basic opinion, but my favorite track on the record is Got to Have Love, which is just like a Pulp disco banger. And it sounds like it would have been a hit in the 90s for Pulp. And it sounds like incredibly fresh 30 years after Pulp were writing other songs like that. So yeah, I am, and there's a lot more to it too. Like I'm not it's not just like, oh, they're, returning to different class, but I think it's really fun to hear Pulp make these just like instantly satisfying songs that tap into like the most instantly satisfying record that they've ever made, in addition to doing other things.
And I know you're going to be spending all your time listening to Turnstile, but what else is out this week?
A lot, actually. Speaking of hardcore bands that put out a record in 2021, the year Glow On came out. For Your Health. I mean, I don't like. I guess they're more screamo, but like they put out their debut album In Spite Of in 2021, and I think they're definitely, for me at least, was I was like, hey, if Glow On is getting people who are not really like always paying attention to the scene of bands with punk roots and screamed vocals or shouted vocals, I hope that some of them happen upon For Your Health. And it's been just as long for them. They put out a split with Awake But Still in Bed a few years ago. But other than that, this is their first record since in 2021. And it's called This Bitter Garden. And I think it could be their best. Speaking of members of bands who produce their own bands working with others. It was produced by Foxing's guitar player, who's become their in-house producer, Eric Hudson, aka EM Hudson. Also, Pool Kids drummer Caden Clinton is the drummer in this record. But yeah, I like this album a lot. It's like over the years, For Your Health have kind of done everything from like harsh 90s style screamo to very catchy 2000 style emo pop. And this record kind of like finds ways to tie all of that together. And I think it's their most interesting album yet. And I've been a big fan of them since the split with Guard in 2019. So no faint praise to say that it could be their best yet.
And Screamo's kind of having a moment, so maybe another good time for them to be releasing this album.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Screamo never goes away. But For Your Health are like, if you're really looking for like Screamo, they're doing it on a level that some of the bands they were grouped with a few years ago aren't anymore. Also this week, we have the new Little Simz album, Lotus, her first without Inflow, the producer that she sued for allegedly failing to repay her a 1.7 million pound loan. So there's definitely a bit of that's addressed on the record. Like there's definitely like a literal and figurative kind of like finding a new freedom and a new beginning on this album. I mean, and also Little Simz is one of the best rappers in the world. So love hearing everything she does. The new McKinley Dixon album, also rap, also like rap that breaks kind of genre barriers. Super good. It's like it's got a lot of live instrumentation on it. And one thing that I said in my review is that if it didn't have vocals, it could still be one of the year's best jazz albums, which I feel like has become a cliche. I've said it about No Name. Everybody said it about To Pimp a Butterfly, but I'm saying it about this. Haley Witter's Corn Queen is a really good country record, I think. More hip hop from Joey Perp. He has a quick, I don't know if he's calling it an EP, but it's an EP length project with producer Thelonious Martin called Champagne Seats. I have not heard a note of Lil Wayne's The Carter Six, but that's going to probably be one of the biggest records this week, and maybe we'll talk about it next week. And then I reviewed all those records over in Notable Releases, and then in Bill's Indie Basement, he talks about the two new albums from Brian Eno and BD Wolf, which are really cool. One is ambient music, but the other is like dream pop and really awesome. Also, Lifeguard, Comet Gain, Activity, Lake Ruth, and I might butcher this pronunciation, but Mythologen. And Bill, of course, has his review of the Pulp record. I highly recommend reading that. Any of these albums for you, Dave, that have kind of stuck out?
Definitely looking forward to hearing the new For Your Health and McKinley Dixon, both artists that I've had moments with in the past. So, yeah, looking forward to checking those out. Meanwhile, just kind of been listening to new Miley Cyrus. So hopefully I can find time even for Turnstile. Always have a soft spot for her. New album is very good, no matter what Pitchfork says. And the new Home Is Where, still in rotation, trying to, Home Is Where, one of my favorite newer bands, one of all of our favorite newer bands. The new album kind of changes their sound a little more towards alt country, and trying to get used to that and getting more and more used to it the more I listen to it. But pretty much anything lately I put on is competing with that Ancient Death album, which has not left rotation. For those that don't know, Ancient Death, kind of fans of Blood Incantation and Tomb Mold and Horrendous and spacey progressive death metal from the last few years like that, definitely check out that Ancient Death album.
Somehow we just went from Miley Cyrus to progressive death metal.
Yes, and I think I actually listened to the Miley Cyrus album on my way to the Canate, I think you say Canate show the other night at they just played 2 nights at LPR here in New York, and I went to night 1. That was actually a little concerned I may have damaged. My earplugs were in, but a little worried I may have damaged my hearing. Anyway, for those that don't know, they're like reunited early 2000s drone sludge metal, like really slow, really heavy, kind of like Sun drone metal, but with intense screams. And so that it was really good. Meanwhile, a lot of new songs out this week too that are kind of exciting and newsworthy and worth talking about right now.
Yeah, definitely. Pool Kids have signed to Epitaph, which I think is awesome. and they announced a new album, and I think the new single is great. Starts out with like atmospheric, like vocoder stuff, and it eventually reaches like the sort of cathartic rock climax that Pool Kids are known for. We got the first single from Ethel Cain's second album of the year, which I think is shaping up to be less antagonizing than her first, and it's 8 minutes long, and it's haunting and gothy, and I think it's great as well. Big Thief announced their new album, and the first single, Incomprehensible, is very different for them. I wish I had a more clever way of quickly summing it up, but it's different for them, and I think it's really cool. Maybe the biggest news is that we're getting the first Clips album in over 15 years, and we got which is the Pusha T and No Malice, and it's entirely produced by Pharrell, whose Neptunes produced the first 3 Clips records. The new single, I think, is sounds like Clips, which is awesome.
Yeah, excited for that.
Yeah. Hot Mulligan announced a new album. Superchunk announced a new album. We actually have an exclusive vinyl variant in our online Brooklyn Vegan shop of that Superchunk record. Also, I mean, with the warm weather in New York, Governor's Ball is this weekend.
Oh yeah, are you going to that?
I'll be there on day 2. It'll actually be my first time seeing Olivia Rodrigo, who I like, so I'm excited. Young Miko plays that day, also exciting.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, you're going to Governor's Ball on Saturday.
Yeah, it's always fun. They do it at Flushing Meadows Corona Park now. I live in Queens, so I like that. It used to be the longest commute to Randall's Island. So I think it's cool that it's in Queens, and I think its current location is my favorite of the ones it's had thus far.
In other news, Grizzly Bear are back, which, if we had a podcast last week, we probably would have talked about, but even more happened since last week, which was they've added even more dates to their tour. So check out those and don't miss the return of Grizzly Bear, which, maybe one day we'll talk about more on another episode. Pavement members threw out the first pitch at a Cincinnati Reds game. My Bloody Valentine's Instagram was hacked. Already the memes coming out of that are amazing. I'm enjoying that one. A Jeff Buckley documentary is coming to HBO. Alex G has been adding more tour dates and announced a new album recently. Speaking of exclusive vinyl variants we have in the shop, head to shop.brooklynvegan now. Grab our exclusive variants of Superchunk, Alex G, and many more recently announced albums and reissues. The Game made his own list of the top 100 LA rappers of all time in response to Complex's own similar list. You could check out that on Brooklyn Vegan. Wednesday announced a tour, including dates with Friendship and Daffo.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the return of Wednesday because this tour announcement follows Elderberry Wine, their recent single. They haven't announced an album yet. I assume that it's coming any day now with the single and the tour, but that's like instantly one of my favorite songs of the year and one of my favorite Wednesday songs. It's been really cool, I think, it's interesting, I think, to have looked at the way Wednesday sort of rose, and then their guitar player, MJ Lenderman's solo career kind of like got even bigger. And then now Wednesday are back and with one of their best songs yet. So it's like this like constant back and forth between these two amazing connected acts. So it's like, okay, like it's been MJ Lenderman all the time, and now we're shifting into Wednesday mode, and I'm here for it. So yeah, hopefully we'll be talking about a new Wednesday album on this show ASAP. All right, I guess that does it for the first episode of BV Weekly. Thanks for listening to our first episode. Stay tuned for new episodes every Friday morning. Tell your friends about us, like, subscribe, give us a good rating if you like what you heard. That little stuff goes a long way. Shout out to Joe D'Agostino from Cymbals and Guitars and Empty Country for the awesome theme song. And Dave and I will see you next week.